Okay, hello folks. How you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World, What's Happening. And welcome to another politics and art stream. So the theme today is, of course, that America is screwed because we are. Lots of stuff to talk about today. We're going to start off with a little bit of some videos having to do with recent protests and things like that. And then we're gonna move on to talking about the pandemic for a little bit, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about Trump's new Supreme Court pick. Her name is Amy Coney Barrett. We're gonna talk about her for a little bit, and then just general corruption and bullfuckery from the Trump people to end it all off. So, thank you. Looks like we got one concurrent viewer. Whoever you are, thank you for watching. Okay, so anyway, but before we start all that, this is where we were at since last time. And there's one thing I gotta do real quick that I forgot to do. I have to turn off the autofocus, because if I don't, then it'll just keep focusing over and over and over, and then, it'll look like shit. So anyway, yeah, and then also I have to get a bottle opener. Because I got one right here. Alright, as I knock all the stuff off of my shelf, let me just open my beer real quick. Alright, can't do a live stream without alcohol. Alright, here we go. Okay, so this is where we were at last time. And it's kind of, it's shaping up. I actually went and did a little bit more inking in the last couple of days. I inked some of this stuff back here on this tree and then back along these bushes and shit like that. But, try to jump ahead a little bit. But yeah, I think it's actually looking pretty good. We got like sort of a forest kind of scene with our little female lady hobbit halfling thing startled in the woods by a bunch of evil sniveling goblin type guys. So we'll just continue on with this here. Okay, so first thing, before we start drawing too much, I have a bunch of videos here. Let me just open up my drive. Okay, USB drive E. I got a bunch of videos here having to do with police brutality. Right. Now, why do I play these things? Okay, why do I feature videos like this? Because, I have, like, in the past shown videos of, various police officers doing bad things at protests and stuff like that. It's because I think it's important to remember, right, what it is these people are out there fighting for. Okay, so we have probably right now a movement that I haven't seen in my lifetime. I don't know. The closest parallel that I can think of to just not just BLM, but the general kind of anti-police brutality movement is the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s. And nothing like this has happened in my lifetime. I can't even think, because we would have periodic protests here and there throughout the years, right? The protests in 2000 against the World Trade Organization, for example, is something that comes to mind. Right. And then, we had the Occupy movement after the financial collapse, stuff like that. But generally, they were pretty isolated, these protests, right? And they sort of petered out after a little while. So you'd have one or two, or maybe like, for example, when the Iraq War first started getting going, right? There were protests all around the world having to do with the Iraq War, in 100 cities around the world. And then it just sort of stopped. It like they protested for a bit, and then nothing happened, and then they just sort of went away. And it's like this time it doesn't seem to be going away. It's been, um, there's been protests in Portland for like 100 days now. I mean, that's like kind of unprecedented. And Occupy Wall Street didn't even really last this long, right? It didn't have the same kind of staying power. It's not going away. And I think part of that has to do with who's in office right now. Obviously, you got the Trump people, and they're just incredibly blatantly, ridiculously corrupt, beyond any president that we've had in recent memory. I mean, you have to go back to the friggin' Teapot Dome scandal and shit like that in order to get something that's even like remotely close to the level of corruption that we're getting from Donald Trump. I mean, the New York Times just released 10 years of his tax returns, 15 years of his tax returns just like today. I don't know if you guys heard about that. I haven't even had a time to digest that shit, but apparently he's only paid something like $750 in taxes in the last fucking decade, which is ridiculous, right? Kind of shows you the levels of corruption we're dealing with. And there's only so much that people will put up with, right? So it's like, everything that we've tried to do to try to hold the Trump people accountable is just failed, right? Every person that's gone up against him is lost. I don't know if you remember that. Michael Cohen tries to take him on. He's the one that ends up in prison for shit that Trump did. Stormy Daniels tries to take him on. She ends up owing him money. Although I think ultimately the courts settled in her favor. But for a long time it's like, that was in the news for a little bit. She actually lost the first round of lawsuits against that and had to pay him money. And now he has to pay her, $150,000 or something like that. They ultimately settled in her favor, but still, it's like, so people get frustrated when it's like, okay, here's this blatantly corrupt, fucking piece of garbage that somehow wormed his way into the fucking highest office in the land, basically just rubbing it in our face, right? And it pisses people off, and they get out there. Stuff like that causes people to go out there and protest. That's number one. Number two, I really think has to do with the fact that there's a pandemic, and a lot of people are out of work. Something like there's something like 26 million people on, basically unemployment right now. On one form of unemployment or another throughout the country. 26 million, which is really unprecedented. We haven't had this many people out of work in decades. This is like Great Depression shit. And I think people don't understand that. I think people think that, like, as soon as eventually once they get a vaccine, or eventually once the numbers go down low enough that where we can reopen, which I think that's probably more likely to happen before we get a vaccine. I think eventually, like, cases will die off to a point where they deem it safe to reopen and for people to walk around and go to the movie theaters and shit like that again, right? I think that people are thinking that once it's like all clear, then shit's just going to go back to normal. It's like, no, dude, it's not going to go back to normal, right? I mean, and I know we kind of talk about this during every live stream, and we should talk about it during every live stream because it's important stuff. 60% of all small businesses are probably going out of business permanently now because of, the pandemic. And it's like, you don't just recover from that in, a week. It's like, okay, everybody come back to work, and then everything goes back to the way it was. It's like, no, dude, we're in this for the long haul. Right? I mean, it's going to take years. It's going to take years and years and years. So, and I know this is like I keep repeating myself when we talk about this, but that's because it's a reality. This is the reality we're facing, folks, right? So I think that has a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with BLM's staying power, is because people are out of work, and when people don't have jobs, they get pissed off, and that's another thing. So, and the third factor that has to do with BLM, right, is the fact that it doesn't seem to be changing. So it just seems like every month there's another example of blatant, ridiculous, illegal police brutality. That, you know, if it's not Breonna Taylor, then it's George Floyd, and if it's not him, it's somebody else. You know, somebody getting shot or beaten to an inch of their life, or you know, the guy. Like, the thing is that there's so many examples of it that I can't even think of them off the top of my head. Who was the guy that you know, what was it? The guy that was shot in his car with his children and who actually lived. He's paralyzed. Like, I just did a live stream about him. Like, you know, I think we talked about him last week. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's so many that you forget. That's the thing, you know. And I think that pisses people off too, because as soon as it starts to calm down a little bit, right, then there's another one. You know, another guy gets shot, another guy gets strangled to fucking death. You know, another guy who was like, you know, who didn't do anything, who wasn't armed, who was not a danger to anyone, gets murdered, you know, dies. When, you know, sometimes, you know, it'll be like a guy calling a cop to help him, you know, hey, we need help, and then they end up shooting the guy that needs the help or whatever, you know. So that was the main thing I wanted to bring up, because this is also, you know, it's never kind of gone out of the news, right? And that's one of the big reasons why, you know, BLM has such staying power, why it's still going, you know, because it hasn't changed, and people are pissed, right? People are pissed because it's every fucking month there's another one, you know, somebody else. So we just had in the news that no charges were filed against the officers who murdered Breonna Taylor, right? So just a quick recap of what happened with Breonna Taylor. There was she had an ex-boyfriend who apparently was into some bad shit, you know, drug dealer shit like that, right? Ex-boyfriend who did not live with her at her current address. Okay, so the guy was an ex, all right? For some reason, the police thought that she was involved in it, right? And they got an anonymous tip or some shit like that, that she was receiving drugs through the mail, right? So they decided to do a no-knock raid, right? Which the current boyfriend that lives with Breonna Taylor, right, who was involved in the shooting, said the police didn't announce themselves. They just kicked down the door and ran in. Of course, the cops dispute that. Cops say that they did announce themselves and they got a witness to say it, but you got to remember that, you know, that doesn't mean anything, right? All that means is they found a guy that said, yeah, you know, they basically have one witness of a neighbor who said he heard the cops announce themselves, right? That doesn't mean shit. Okay, all that means is, you know, they just got a guy to say that. Right. I mean, he could have heard it after they kicked the door down. They could have said, you know, police, after they kicked the door down and started shooting. Right. They could have went to the guy and threatened him, or even paid him off and said, hey, you know, say that you heard us announce ourselves. Well, you know, we'll make this legal problem you have go away. That could have happened too. We don't know. And the reason why we don't know is because they didn't have their body cams turned on like they were supposed to. You know, there's a reason, like, I know, like, police don't like body cams, and they don't like body cams because they hold them accountable, right? And there's a reason why, you know, body cams exist, because if they would have their body cams on, we would know exactly what happened during that raid. We would know if they actually announced themselves or if they didn't. So now they just have a witness, right? One witness that says one thing while another witness says something else. Who do you fucking believe? Well, apparently the grand jury believed the cops' witnesses because they chose to not indict them, right? So, basically, the only guy that is getting held accountable for this, right? Because here's what happened. The cops bust down the door, whether they announce themselves or not, right? Which I'm going to believe the victim of the goddamn crime and say that they didn't announce themselves. Right? But whatever. We don't really know if they did or not. So, okay, I'll make that caveat. Right. And so her current boyfriend didn't know who they were because they don't announce themselves according to him. So he opens fire on them because from his perspective, there's a bunch of home invasion robbers who are kicking down the door, and who knows what the hell's going on. And apparently he legally owned his firearm. That's another thing you got to remember, right? It wasn't like he was a drug dealer with an illegal gun. He actually owned his firearm legally, as is his Second Amendment right. You know, and this is why people own guns in the first place, to defend themselves, isn't it? That's what they're there for, right? Why do you buy a gun in the first place? Because you think that your neighborhood or where you live or whatever, you know, isn't safe. So that's why you had a gun. And this is exactly the reason, exactly the situation where any gun owner, right, would have their firearm when people are trying to fucking break into your house, right? So he fires, and he wings a cop in the leg. So the police return fire, because at this point, the police think that, oh, there's drug dealers in this house who are going to kill us. And all three of the cops unload in this house and kill Breonna Taylor in her sleep. So she's sleeping through all this shit. She gets shot in her bed while she's sleeping, and she dies. Okay, so that's something else you got to remember. She wasn't resisting arrest, okay, because you're going to see there's tweets and shit going out from, you know, conservative talking head commentators, right, saying that she was resisting arrest and shit like that. That's not what happened. She didn't interact with them at all. They fucking killed her while she was sleeping. That's what happened, okay? So now it's like, well, they showed all this to a grand jury, but the way that the law is written in Kentucky is that the law basically shields the cops. So, you know, since they have a guy that says that they announced themselves, right? Since they have a witness that takes their side, then basically no laws were broken. Right, so they're not getting held accountable at all for shooting a woman while she slept in her apartment. All right. The only guy that's actually getting held accountable for anything is one of the cops shot through the windows into the place and accidentally shot into a different apartment and put the people in that apartment in danger. And that guy is getting, you know, indicted for like reckless endangerment. Not even like first-degree murder or any shit like that. So that's why people are pissed. People are pissed because, you know, they're getting away with it. They're getting away with it. And so that's just another example of, you know, why do you think it's called BLM? Right? Because your life doesn't matter. Right? When it comes to, you know, justice being served, right? When the police screw up and don't follow the procedures the way they're supposed to, they don't have their body cams on, shit like that, right? When they don't do what they're supposed to fucking do and somebody dies, then justice is never ever served, you know? So that's why people are pissed. That's why people are continuing to go out there and protest every single day. And that's why I think it is, you know, I think it is important for us to see what actually happens during these protests and stuff, right? Because once again, you know, the police are not being held accountable for the way that they act during these protests, right? Now, one thing that you're going to hear from people, and please remember, I'm not an anti-cop person, okay? My dad's a cop. He was a cop for, you know, 35 years, right? So, you know, I respect law and order, and I respect police officers, right? Why am I speaking out against them? I'm not speaking out against police officers. I'm speaking out against police officers who are not doing their jobs correctly. Right? That's what I'm speaking out against. Because you should be able to trust the cops, because we need them. They're a necessary part of, you know, society. You can't run a society without policing of some kind. Okay? So that's why it's doubly, you know, it's worse. Like when you have someone in authority that you trust to uphold the law and they break the law, that kind of makes it, in my opinion, somehow worse than just a criminal breaking the law. Okay? It's because this dude's not just breaking the law, he's betraying the public trust. And that makes it worse. you know, that should mean their punishment should be even worse. All right. So here's a couple of things I want to show you guys some videos here. Here's one. This is why you need body cams. All right. This is why you need body cams. This is why it's important to record these interactions. Okay. So let me turn the we can keep the let me turn the audio off just in case it's fucked up. Let's just turn down this audio. All right. So, and let me turn on my left monitor. So here we go. This is a video that was taken of a cop planting drugs on somebody at a stop, and then once they notice that they're being filmed, watch what happens. Okay, you know, blah blah blah. Alright, here goes a guy, he's being held down. There goes a cop right there. You know, he's looking around. Look at this. Oh, look at that. What did he just put on the ground right there? Look at that. Oh, wait. Oh, that wasn't there before. Oh, hey, look. Somebody's filming it. Let's go get the guy who's filming it. Let's just watch that one more time. So, right back here. Here's Officer fucking Friendly. Has a guy down, you know. Apparently, whatever they have this dude arrested for wasn't good enough. So, oh, let's just plant some crack on him while we're at it. Once again, looking around, anybody watching? Oh, look, some crack. Oh, hey, look, I found this crack here. Uh-oh, you're going to jail, buddy. Oh, wait, who's this guy over here with a phone? Oh, shit, get him. Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about, okay? That kind of thing is worse, in my opinion, than a normal crack dealer. Right? A normal person who just happened to have crack on them, you know, is a criminal and should go to jail. Right? A cop planting it on somebody who didn't have it so that he'd have an excuse to throw someone in prison and ruin his fucking life. That's just fucked up. It's fucked up. And you know, it doesn't matter what that guy, the perp that they had there, it doesn't matter who he was. Okay? Because this is what you hear from people that defend this shit. Because people do. People defend this behavior. And they say, oh, that guy's a gang member, blah, blah, blah. He's bad. You know, I don't care if they put him away for the rest of his fucking life. He probably deserved it. You know, he probably deserved it. Well, you don't fucking know who this guy is. For all we know, you know, they could have had some personal reason of doing this to him. Maybe this dude pissed the cop off in some way. Right? Maybe he actually was a criminal and they just can't get any evidence. Well, too fucking bad. You know, that's a crime. What that police officer just did is a crime. You're not allowed to plant evidence on somebody, even if you know that the guy's a criminal. Even if you witnessed him doing a goddamn crime. If you don't have evidence for it, then the state cannot make a case. Right? And it's not right. You know, so what do you do in that situation? What do? You investigate and you get the fucking evidence. That's what you do. Alright? And don't tell me that they can't fucking do that, because they do it all the time. You know, this is what their job is. Their job is to investigate bad guys and criminals and crack dealers and shit like that. Right? So it's like, no, basically that's just showing that this cop is, first off, lazy, secondly, a crooked piece of shit. And I hope that this, you know, this fucking cop got the goddamn book thrown at him, because he makes all the good, legitimate police officers look bad. See, that's what you guys got to understand. It's like, you know, there's this thing on the left right now. There's you know, all cops are bastards, right? And you know what? I admit I've even tweeted that a couple of times myself. Because when you see shit like that, when you see shit like a cop planting crack on somebody, you get angry. You know, you get angry, right? And you know why? Because that makes people like my father, who was a police officer, it makes them look bad. You know? Because then people associate it with all police, right? Even though it's like, So what does that do? That makes people not trust police officers. They're not going to trust them. Why would you trust somebody if you think they're going to plant crack on you if they don't like you? Number one. So then that means that crimes go unreported. So the actual real fucking criminals out there who deserve to, who need to be prosecuted and thrown in fucking jail, they're not actually getting those guys because people are afraid to fucking go to the police because they're afraid of getting blamed for shit that they didn't do. See, you lose all around. It's a lose-lose situation any way that you fucking look at it when you get behavior like that. And so that's why it's like, I hope that guy got the goddamn book thrown at him. I hope the judge threw the book so hard at his ass that it like knocked him out of his seat, and then fucking like, the book landed on his nuts afterwards, right? Because it's fucked up. It's fucked up, and it's like, that video right there does way more to ruin the public trust than than 20 crack dealers do. Seriously. Anyway, got a couple of more for you. Here's a video here. Let me turn this on. We'll stop this. This is in I think this is in Los Angeles. So let me turn on my left monitor again. This is a cop pushing an unarmed person from behind for no reason. So there's a protest. Okay, here goes the protesters walking away. Boom! Pushes that guy over for no fucking reason. And then watch see how fast he's walking away. Look at that. Look at that shit. Okay, now let's watch that one more time. Okay. Here's a guy, he's got his hands up. Hands are up. He's not doing anything. He's not endangering anybody. Cop tells him to, like, get going. So he's walking away. See? This guy walks up to him, is nudging him, saying, hey man, get going. Okay, so he's like, alright, hey, I'm walking. This cop runs up for no fucking reason, knocks him over. Why? Why? What did that guy do? Was just not fucking walking fast enough? Right? And then, watch how fast he, like, bails. Okay? So then everybody's pissed, and then this dude's just walking away. Like, oh, yeah, okay. And are all these guys doing anything? No. No. All the other police officers standing around don't do jack shit. Does anybody tell him, hey, you fucked up? Hey, that's wrong. What the fuck are you doing? No. They didn't say anything. This dude didn't even make eye contact with him. Watch him. See, like, this guy right here, he's calling it in, right? Goes to call in. Didn't even make eye contact with him. What kind of fucking shit is that? Alright. Seriously. And what's going to happen to that guy? That cop that did that? Probably nothing. That's the shitty part about all of this. Is that most likely nothing is going to happen to either of these police officers. There will be an investigation. They'll open an investigation, right? And, they might get a reprimand. Okay. And they'll get, like, yeah, they'll be paid time off while they're opening their investigation. Right. And I can guarantee you the guy that shoved that dude, probably nothing. I'd be surprised if he even got a stiff talking to from his, like, commanding officer or whatever the fuck they call it. I don't know. Do they call it a commanding officer when you're police in the police, or do they call it a CO, or is it just like, your boss? I don't know. They have kind of a military structure, right? I think they call him a CO, but I would be surprised if anybody said shit to that dude. Okay. He's going to get away with it. And, do you think the victim is going to, like, even bother filing a report? He might, maybe if the guy has a little bit of money and can hire a lawyer, they might bother filing a report. But do you even think it's gonna even, like, go anywhere? No. They don't get held accountable at all. They will not be, that guy will most likely not be held accountable at all. And, that's why people are pissed. And it's like, these are the guys that we're trusting to withhold, public safety. Right? Like, why would you trust them? Why would you give them more money if this is what they're going to do to you? When the shit hits the fan And, you know, here's the thing, okay? We have this public unrest in the country. This is when it's the most important to have a professional police force, right? That actually does shit by the book and actually, like, protects people and doesn't fuck them up, right? This is why it's important. It's important at this moment, when there's civil unrest, that the laws are obeyed, that the police enforce the laws. So if they see a protester fucking vandalizing shit or breaking shit or burning shit down, they stop them. And if they see one that isn't doing that, they don't do anything. Right? That's what's supposed to fucking happen, because it is not against the law to go protest. It isn't. Alright? You know, if you break the law while you're protesting, that's different. You know, if you obstruct traffic or some shit, you know, or if you actually do go and vandalize something or commit arson, that's different. Okay, that's an actual, you know. But was that guy breaking any laws right there? Was that guy burning anything down? The dude that they pushed over, right? Was he vandalizing anything? Did he throw a bottle of cocktail? No, he didn't do shit. He didn't walk fast enough for a cop. You know, if even that. And if you look, that dude ran up from behind him. You know, most likely that guy just didn't like his looks. You know, maybe that dude said something he didn't like, and he wanted to get him back. Right? That's fucking wrong. It's wrong. Okay? It's wrong and it shouldn't be allowed. But there's nothing we can do about it. Literally, you know, literally the only thing that we can do is what Black Lives Matter is doing. Going out there protesting. Right? And, well, there is one other thing we can do, and that's vote. But we'll get to that later. And, you know, it's really highly unfortunate that a lot of the people who are protesting right now don't actually believe in electoral politics. But we'll talk about that again. This is something I kind of bring up during every live stream, too. And I don't want to, you know, at the risk of repeating myself, again, I do it because it's important. But we'll talk about that towards the end of the stream. Okay, more videos. Here's another one in Los Angeles. And I actually got this stabilized because it was really hard to see. This is the LA, let's turn on our monitor again. This is the LA Sheriff's Department, not the LAPD. This is the LA Sheriff's Department, LASD. And they've got a guy down here, and they basically have this dude on the ground, and one of the cops attempts to hobble him with his shield. So watch this shit. They got him down. Here goes the cop. Smashing his ankle. Look at that shit. Bam, bam. Smashing his legs. Why would you do it? See, now, look at how they're standing, okay? See that? The guy's on the ground. He's face down on the ground. And why is this cop smashing his fucking legs? Right? What, is his legs not in the right fucking position? You know, he's here with, like, fucking 4 dudes on top of him. He's not going anywhere. He's not a danger to anybody, this person, right? So why is this guy fucking brutalizing him like that? Trying to break his leg for? Okay. You know, these things, these are big-ass, like, heavy plexiglass shields that are designed to, like, deflect rocks and model of cocktails and fucking bricks and shit. Okay, this isn't just some flimsy-ass piece of fucking plastic. This is like a lethal weapon that you could fuck somebody up with. Look at that. Smashing his fucking leg. Let's watch that one more time. Okay. Protest in Hollywood. Oh, I don't like this guy. I'm just gonna fucking hobble him. And you see that? See how he moves his leg? See, watch. His leg is up here. To begin with, the guy's leg is up here, and then he moves it down there. Watch. Up there. Hitting his fucking leg. Oh, wait, he moved it. Still fucking hitting it. Why did he do that? What's the point of that? You know? What, the guy pissed him off? Right? Why, you know, cops are not allowed to beat the shit out of you just because you pissed them off. That's against the law. You know, but what's going to happen to that guy? Nothing. There will most likely, in that instance, not even be an investigation. Right there. You know? I doubt that the guy that happened to even knows what that cop's name is. And he's in jail probably right now with a fucked up leg. You know, guy probably can't afford a lawyer because he's, you know, in prison right now, all fucked up, and nothing is ever going to happen. He's never going to see justice for that. And that's just how it is. That's how it is in America. This is why, you know, when they say defund the police, this is what they're talking about. You know, cops shouldn't be doing shit like this to people when you're out there protesting. Alright? You're allowed to protest. It is not against the law to protest. And even if you do break the law like that, you shouldn't have your fucking ankles broke. You know, because you piss a cop off. You shouldn't have, you know, a cop running up behind you just pushing you onto the fucking ground because he feels like it. Or planting cocaine on you. You know, that shit is against the law. I mean, and I know I get conservatives that watch my channel who defend this shit. And it's like, why are you defending it? How can you possibly defend those things that we just watched? How can you possibly defend just that sort of cruelty, that kind of just wanton fucking cruelty that we just witnessed? You know, you want to see cruelty? Here's a real fucked up one. This one is making the rounds on Reddit right now. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. Ah, I got the wrong video. God damn it. Okay, well that's okay. We can find this. Let me just go up here and let me do a Google for this video because I fucked up and downloaded the wrong video. Sorry about that, folks. Let me move this over here. Let's go over there. Let's do keep. And it's this video of in Seattle. And it's about a cop with a bike running over a guy's head. Here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna have to fast forward it to the right part because since I downloaded the wrong one, then I don't want to get my stream canceled because I'm like going to like, you know, the Young Turks to fucking watch this. So we're going to do this without any sound. Here we go. Alright, so let me turn on my thing. So we're not going to have any sound. So if you haven't seen this, this is really fucked up. I mean, if you thought those other ones were bad, watch this shit. This is just like fucking fucked up. Okay. So here we go. Cops are riding their bikes in Seattle. Here's a guy on the ground. Apparently this guy was injured, right? I wasn't able to find out exactly what he was injured for. But he's kind of like laying down there trying to be as helpless, you know, trying to look as helpless as possible so that they don't fucking kill him. And watch what happens. Look at that. Look at it. Did you see that? Cop just, you know, and the cop's not even riding his bike. He's walking it. Walks right up, runs it right over his head. Doesn't even try to get out of the way. Doesn't try to move around him. A guy that's no danger to anyone. Right? He's not being violent. He's not breaking any laws. He's injured and needs help. And this fucking piece of shit just hits his ass in the head with a bike on purpose because he's an asshole. Look at that. How can you fucking defend it? And then see this dude's all fucked up right here afterwards. You know, and then people are like going over to help him and all the cops stop him from being helped. What kind of shit is that? You know, I wanted to download this, but fuck it, it's like, it's not that hard to find. What's gonna happen to that guy? You know, is anything gonna happen to that piece of shit cop that just fucking like hit that dude and ran over his fucking head with his bike? Nope. Nothing at all will happen. Nothing at all. Okay. Why, you know, how can anybody defend that? I mean, are you really going to sit here, and it doesn't matter who the fuck you voted for, it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are, okay? I don't give a shit if you're a fucking, you know, Republican or conservative or libertarian or whatever. Can you really sit there and watch that happen and not get pissed off? Alright? Do you think that they won't do it to you just because, what? Because you wear a red hat? You know? Because you think, what? Because you believe in small government? Is that why you think that they're not going to do it to you? Are you fucking serious? Right? Seriously, like, is there anybody out there that actually believes that, the police will be on your side when it comes to you being in that position? Do you really think that they're not going to, like, do the exact same fucking thing to you? I mean, I don't know. Maybe they do. We have been seeing evidence of the police coordinating with Trump people. There was that video I showed last week that was going around last week about how a car ran through a crowd in New York and the people in the car were being protected by cops. Which kind of brings up something that happened. Here's another video. This is in California, and this is in Yorba Linda, which is outside of LA. And actually, is Yorba Linda outside? I've never actually been to Yorba Linda. Let me just verify that so that I, know what I'm talking about. Where the hell is Yorba Linda anyway? I thought it was. Hang on. Yeah, Yorba Linda is in Chino. Okay, so it's basically wow. Where the hell is that? I have never actually fucking been there. Okay, it's near Long Beach. Okay, so Yorba Linda is actually near Disneyland. So, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to Disneyland. That's where this is. Right. Roughly close to Disneyland. And, not all of California or even, Los Angeles is, liberal. Right. There's a lot of conservatives that live in LA as well. And I think that surprises a lot of people. Especially out in this area, Orange County, that kind of place, right? A lot of conservatives out in Orange County. And, so these are Trump supporters that we're watching here, right? Here, let me turn on my monitor here, right? So just to want to show you guys, the difference, what actually happens here. So here's my monitor, right? And let me just sort of, oh wow, let me make this a little smaller because this is like, you can't even see this entire thing, can you? No, you can't. Let's see. Let me drag that down. There we go. Okay, let me just sort of make this, just making sure that none of this is cut off. Right. All right, so here goes, this is Yorba Linda, right? And a car drives through a bunch of Trump supporters. Now, I want you to watch this, because this is something I'm seeing on Reddit a lot. There's a subreddit called Actual Public Freakouts, which is like the normal public freakouts subreddit, but for Trump supporters. Right. And they pretty much exclusively put videos of protesters, and any video that makes, like, leftists or black people in general look bad, because they think that all black people are leftists. Right. And that kind of thing. It's one of those sort of borderline racist subs that popped up after TD got banned, and it's pretty much going to get banned any day now. And so these guys are Trump supporters, right? And let's watch what happens. There's a car. They're basically smashing the car. The car drives through. Right. Now I want you to see this. See this? Back window of this car is smashed already. So the car drives through and knocks a couple of people over. Right. Everybody starts screaming. They start chasing the car. Right. And then the car stops at the red light, and then a cop pulls it over. So all these people are chasing it. This guy with his fucking Blue Lives Matter thing. Right. They're all screaming at the cops, hey, these guys ran some people over, blah, blah, blah. Right. The cops do the right thing here. See, now they're kind of running up, hitting the fucking flags and shit on their car. Right. There's already a flagpole sticking out. The cops do the right thing and pull this guy over. Okay, because that's what you're supposed to do when a car runs through a crowd, is pull him over. And apparently this person has not been charged, as far as I can tell. They went down there, and the cops are stopping the fucking crowd from chasing them. So, now, why do I bring this up? Because there have been a lot of instances in the last few months of conservatives driving their cars through crowds at BLM protests. A lot of them. It happens constantly, right? And a couple of people have been injured and even killed, you know, from fucking Trump supporters and red hat fucking conservatives and shit running people over, right? So now it's like, oh, we get to see how they react when the shit happens to them. Okay, now please keep in mind here, right, that when this video starts, they are already smashing the car up. And it drives through, right? It drives through and it's already has its fucking window smashed. See that? Smashed window. Okay. So, the big excuse you get from conservatives and Trump supporters and stuff like that is that, well, these are violent extremists who are going to pull the people out of their cars and beat the crap out of them and possibly murder them. And so they don't have a choice, and they're afraid for their lives, and that's why they just ran through the crowd and killed 3 people. That's the excuse we've been getting this whole fucking time. It actually looks like that's what's happening in this video, doesn't it? Car was in a crowd, back window smashed, people are hitting it with flags and shit like that, trying to pull the guy out of the car. So the car fucking drives through, knocks a couple of people over, right? So then again, you know, go on Reddit, right? Go on the conservative parts of Reddit. You're going to see, you know, it's just funny how fast they spin it back around and take the other side when the shit happens to them. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, this guy wanted to murder these people. Oh, they were just defending themselves, blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't know this car could have fucking killed them. Gee, really? It's almost like driving a car through a crowd is like having a weapon that you can kill multiple people with, isn't it? Funny, maybe that shouldn't be something that, you know, is allowed. Maybe if you run a crowd through a bunch of people, you know, you're kind of an asshole, right? Maybe they should have just turned and went down the other street and said, and maybe, you know, this isn't just all those other people that the shit's been happening to this whole time. Maybe they weren't just violent extremists that are out there trying to maim and murder people. Maybe they were afraid for their lives too, just like these MAGA fucking chuds are in this video. You know, I mean, shit, and that's why I wanted to show this, okay? Because basically, this is what I'm hearing over and over and over from the right wingers, people who are basically, when the shit, you know, when they're the perpetrators, right? When someone who's a conservative is a perpetrator, let me put it that way, they're all too quick to fucking defend them. Right. But when they become the victims, suddenly it's a 180. And it's just, it's unbelievable. And that's, you know, that's kind of where we're at in this country right now, folks. You know, it's like a low-key civil war. You know, I mean, my live stream from 3 weeks ago, that's what I called it. You know, we're in a cold civil war in this country right now. People are, you know, tribalism, people taking sides, shit like that. And it's like, you know, maybe violence is wrong no matter who you vote for, right? And if you're liberal or Democrat or Republican or conservative or whatever, maybe we should all, you know, be trying to stop that shit instead of encouraging it. Okay. But no, it's like, they're not doing shit. It's, I don't know. I like pointing out hypocrites, okay, because I think that's something that everybody can understand. You know, you can understand when you see some guy lying to your fucking face, you know, like Lindsey Graham, for example, right, saying that he would not vote to confirm a Supreme Court pick, you know, during Trump's first term, and then turning around and doing exactly that because he's a lying piece of shit. I think pointing out, you know, when someone sees a hypocrite, it's kind of like a visceral reaction inside that, you know, I hope it's not just me. Maybe it's only me. Maybe I'm the only person that reacts this way towards hypocrisy. But it's, you know, nothing makes me despise somebody more than when they say one thing and do another. Right? That's the worst. And, you know, I know it's something that everybody does, and I try to not do it myself. I try to be conscious of when I'm acting hypocritical myself, you know. Because we all have at one point in our lives. But at the very least, I think that we could, you know, at least when it comes to our elected officials, that should be one thing that we all agree on. You know, hypocrites have no place in our public, you know, our public lives. They have no place running things, right? Especially a government that is supposed to be looking out in the public's best interest. And when I say the public, that means everybody, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, right? It's supposed to be the public's best interest is everybody's best interest. So anyway, so there was one other story I wanted to show you guys before we get off the cop thing. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to save that. I have this story here about in Pennsylvania, a police officer slashing people's tires. But I think I'm going to save that and maybe one of these days do a whole video just on crooked cops and stuff like that. So let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. So what has come out this last week? Well, in Florida, they have removed all restrictions when it comes to the pandemic. So basically, all businesses are now open, right? There are no restrictions on gatherings. So you can have big parties and concerts and, you know, weddings and other events where large amounts of people are jammed into a small space, right? No restrictions on that at all, okay? Schools are all reopened. It's just basically back to normal, you know? And, yeah, I don't even think they have a mask mandate going in Florida, but I don't know. Maybe they do, right? And this is basically just, you know, the first state to actually do this, number one. Right. Oh, sorry. And it's pretty much a disaster in the making. Right. Because, you know, so they say, okay, well, why are they doing this? Well, apparently it's because the rate of infection is down in Florida. But that's not necessarily true. It's really not actually down. It's kind of spiking. So let's go to Google. Let me turn on my left monitor here. Okay. And let's go to Google, and we're going to search for coronavirus, and then we'll say deaths, Florida. So Google is a wonderful tool that lets you look up stuff like this in an instant. So let's look at, these are the deaths that are coming out of Florida. Look at that. So yesterday, right, this is September 23rd. Okay, so 4 days ago. Here we go. Here's yesterday, September 26th. 100 people died in Florida. Okay. 23rd, 200. Right, so you can kind of see this makes a curve. You see how it kind of goes up and then down, and it spikes way up, and then it's like, you know, it's actually kind of hasn't really gone down that much. I guess it's gone down some since August, but not that much, you know. Looking at the number of deaths that have happened so far in Florida, 14,000, that's nice. 700,000 total cases. Right. Let's look at coronavirus cases. Florida. Rolling average. I can spell. Okay. Here's a rolling average of cases. Right. So, well, doesn't look that bad. Right. Daily. So what is this? 160,000? Right? So this was in July. August. There's a huge spike here in the middle of August. September, what is it? September 27th? Okay. Now it's kind of down a little bit. Rolling average. So what does that mean? A rolling average is basically you take the average of a bunch of days, and then as you add more data to it, the average gets updated, so you can kind of track and see how it's gone down and up and down, right? Apparently they think, you know, I mean, they still have more than 2,000 cases a day. All right, so apparently they think 2,000 cases a day is good enough to just reopen everything. I don't know. Kind of sounds to me like that really wouldn't be that good of a position, right? Now, before you, you know, pat Florida on the back from bringing their rolling average way down, you know, let's take a look at California. So what do they got here? So they have 14,000, right, deaths. They got 700,000 total cases. They got about roughly 2,000, right, 2,000, you know, new cases a day. Let's look at California. 15,000 deaths, 800,000 cases. Not that different, right? Let's look at the rolling average for California. Let's see if we can find some kind of, you know, let's see, what do we got here? Let's go to images. Rolling average for Cal, that's up to April, June. Yeah. Here we go. April 1st. Huh? Do we have anything that's out to September? Let's see. No, that's Florida. Stop that. Let's see. Georgia, California, Los Angeles. LA County. This is just LA County. But here we go. Oh, that's Wales. Okay. Well, anyway. No, Florida. Not seeing anything for California. So we don't actually have this. Oh, well. Still, I mean, it doesn't really seem like... Here's that same graph we were just looking at. This is Georgia. Show me California, goddammit. Hospitalizations down, but deaths up in California. I guess they don't have the rolling average. Oh, well. Anyway, the point is I wanted to see how many new cases per day that we would be seeing in California, right? Because this is just the total cases. Actually, wait a minute. Can we do that here? Oh, shit, we could just do that here. Well, damn. Google is awesome. Here we go. New cases. 4,000. So, yeah, a little bit more than what you would see in Florida. Actually, I think we can just go to Florida right here, can't we? So, well, wait a minute. 27.95 in Florida. Let's go back to California. California, 3,481. Not that big of a difference. So, basically, Florida only has about 1,000 less total deaths, about 100,000 less total cases, and only about 500 less cases per day than California does. So it's pretty much exactly what you're seeing in California. That's pretty much the same thing. But Florida is deciding to reopen, and California isn't. And it's like, well, why is that? Well, one thing you got to remember also is that Florida is not showing us accurate data. Okay? Florida is not showing accurate data. Right? In fact, I've actually got a link to that, which I will put in the bottom, you know, of basically scientist in Florida who was, a doctor in Florida who was basically like a fucking, whistleblower, saying that they asked her to like change her results and shit. So it's kind of like we already know that Florida was not giving us accurate numbers to begin with. Right. So what does all this mean? What does all this mean? It means basically Florida has just kind of given up. They've given up, It's over. Like, they're not even like trying to like protect people anymore. And the decision has been made that the economy is more important than people's lives in Florida. So if you live in Florida, I hope that you continue to socially distance. And I hope you continue to wear a mask. And I hope you continue to avoid large gatherings. And I hope that you're able, if you have a job that allows you to work from home, I hope you still do it, or still able to do it, because they're, your government, your state government is basically just kind of leaving you hanging out to dry. And we're going to see a massive spike in the number of cases from Florida. That is, if they don't try to cover it up, which we know that that's what they're already doing. Right. That's what's going on in Florida right now. How long before other states start doing the same thing? Right. Now, why would other states do this? Why would other states feel the need to reopen when it's obviously not safe? Well, first off, a lot of states are losing money right now because people aren't working. That means they're not paying taxes. That means money is not going into state coffers. And that means they don't have the money that they thought they would have when it comes to different programs. Right. So a lot of states, and and a lot of that has to do with, plus more and more people are on state assistance, whether it's welfare or, unemployment or something like that. Right. Because millions of people are out of work. And it's just sort of like this kind of reinforcing whirlwind, downward spiral kind of thing, where it's like, now the state doesn't have the money to help the people who are out of work. So that means that the people who are out of work, aren't able to find work, and they're not able to pay taxes, and then the state loses more money, etc., etc., etc. Downward spiral. This is kind of what happens when you have depressions, right? Economic depressions. This is shit that happens. I got some comments here. Dinah Cat Loves Me. How you doing? I will read your comments at the end of the stream and comment on your comments. So anybody who's watching, looks like there are a couple of people watching. If you have anything you want me to talk about, just leave it in a comment, and then I will get to it at the end of the stream. I'll take like the last half hour of the stream and talk about those. So, yeah. And the thing is, getting back to what we were saying, if we actually had some decent leadership, this shit wouldn't be happening. If we had a government that actually looked out for us like they're fucking supposed to, right, we wouldn't have this problem. I need to get a ruler. Hang on a second, folks. Excuse me 1 second. Okay. Right. And I bring this up in streams. I think I've said the same thing in the last 4 streams. And it bears repeating because fucking it's true, right? Other countries are not having these problems that we're having. Okay, I'm not saying that they're like having a great time during all this, but other countries are not experiencing this downward economic spiral where people are losing jobs, and then that means they're losing tax money, and then that means people are getting, then there's no tax money for the programs that people are relying on, etc., 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 right? They're not having this problem in France or in Germany or the UK or Japan, Right? Because they actually fucking did the right thing and took the right measures, both economically and as far as public safety goes. You know, Canada's not having this problem. Mexico's not having this problem. Right. Because they actually instituted some, you know, common sense fucking policies. Right. To make sure people didn't lose their jobs. Right. To make sure that, you know, large events were all canceled, and they're not having, you know, their politicians aren't going around having fucking rallies that are like super spreader events. I don't know if you've seen that shit. Trump is still having fucking giant rallies with like, you know, 10, 15, 20,000 people in them. Apparently, a lot of his people are being bussed in. So that kind of gives me a little bit of confidence, you know, that if he has to actually bus people in to fill up his rallies, then maybe that's good. Maybe that means that people are, you know, not as excited for him this time as they were last time around. Right. But who knows? I mean, we know that the Trump camp artificially inflates those numbers to begin with. And we also know that they're not above hiring actors to go cheer for him. I mean, if you remember his very, very first campaign appearance ever, coming down the stairs and the escalators in Trump Tower, those were hired actors out there to fucking, like, you know, cheer for him, right? So it's like, we know they've hired actors before, so yeah, maybe they're just bussing people in because they can't get enough people in the local area, in which case that's kind of good, in my opinion. It's like, good, they're bussing people in because people aren't fucking buying into his bullshit. But I don't know, that's just my own personal hope. I don't have any evidence of that. Right. So yeah, basically, you know, if it sounds like I'm blaming all this on the Republicans, I am. Right. So let's move on a little bit. Speaking of Donald Trump, let's move to our next subject here. I see we got 3 people watching. Hey, all right. Welcome, guys. Thank you for watching. The next person I want to talk about is Amy Coney Barrett, right? Who is Donald Trump's pick for the Supreme Court. So, just to kind of recap, I won't spend too much time on this because this is basically what my entire stream was last week. The Republicans have lied to us all one more time and are fielding a Supreme Court pick. Because even though in 2016 the justification they gave for not having a hearing on Merrick Garland was that no Supreme Court pick has ever been confirmed during a lame duck session of, you know, before an election, right? And even though the GOP said this would be the new rule, and even Lindsey Graham, I played the video last week saying that, you know, you can use my words against me. If a Supreme Court pick comes up before the election during Donald Trump's first term, I will vote no. Even though they've all done a 180 and lied to us just like we all knew they were going to. Right? It's, you know, oh God, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so anyway, even though all of that shit happened, you know, they still chose this person who's like, you know, they're still going ahead. You know, they said all of that stuff and they just turned around and completely lied their asses off to us all. And so now Donald Trump has named this Amy Barrett person to be a Supreme Court judge. So who the hell is Amy Barrett? Well, she's ultra-conservative. That should surprise nobody, right? But she's not just ultra-conservative in the same way that, say, Scalia was ultra-conservative or something like that. She's a wacky religious conservative, too, who apparently is part of this weird charismatic Christian church, which is like a borderline cult kind of thing. And, well, she's Catholic, which is kind of strange because her, when you say charismatic, what that means is it's usually a Pentecostal thing. And it's like, do you ever see those guys handling snakes and like speaking in tongues and drinking poison, shit like that? Like, that's what charismatic is. Right? So, as far as I know, her church doesn't handle snakes or drink poison, but they do speak in tongues, and they do believe in prophecy, and they do faith healing, which is all supposed to be shit that Catholics are supposed to not believe in. And I know this because I'm supposed to be a Catholic, even though I'm not. But, I was baptized Catholic. I went to church a couple of times, right? And we're not supposed to believe this shit, because this is supposed to be stuff that is like weird cults and that kind of thing believe in this stuff. And the Catholic Church doesn't go for it. But apparently this branch of Catholicism does. Whatever this weird ass fucking... They're called the People of Praise. It's a religious group. And they believe that men are the heads of the household and have authority over their wives. Apparently they don't believe the Bible verse that says women shall not teach in the temple or have any authority over men. Apparently they don't. Apparently they just didn't read that part of the Bible, where your wife is supposed to be subservient to a man, and women are not supposed to have any sort of authority over men whatsoever. But that's par for the course when it comes to Christianity. I mean, why believe in all of it when you can only believe the parts that you like? And she's essentially a very, very wacky, super religious, pro-life person whose very existence seems to be to restrict abortion rights. She's written a couple of things to this effect. There's a link. I'll put a link to a paper that she wrote, right, which is all about her squaring her Catholic belief with the law that says, capital punishment. And it's basically 40 pages of her bullshitting herself into believing that capital punishment is okay, but abortion isn't. Right? Because, the Bible says thou shalt not kill and all that shit, but that's not good enough, because they want to kill people, but they don't want to kill the little baby fetuses, so they have to find some fucking excuse that says, hey, we're allowed to kill these guys over here, but not these guys, right? As you can see, as you could probably tell, I'm not a very religious person. I tend to think that it's all a lot of bullshit. And it's because of stuff like this. It's because the more religious someone seems to be, the more likely they are to pick and choose the parts of the religion that they want to believe in, right? And not actually do what it actually says that you're supposed to fucking do. So, yeah. So remember all that stuff I said last week about not worrying about abortion being banned and all that stuff? Well, I take it all back. You should be worried now. You should be worried. And the thing is, the reason why I said all of that is because logically, it doesn't seem politically advantageous to me for the conservatives to ban abortion, right? Besides the fact that they make millions and millions and millions of dollars in campaign contributions and so on, getting people, getting campaign contributions from people who want to ban abortion, right? What happens if you actually do it? Like, let's say, you have all these campaign contributions, let's say you're getting $50 million a year from Christians who say they want to ban abortion. What happens if you actually ban abortion? Are they going to keep, contributing to you? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe they might think, great, it's done. We can stop now. Right? Who knows, right? So that's one thing. But besides that, I personally think there's going to be a backlash if they actually do manage to ban it, at least if they do it on a national level. I think there will be a massive backlash against them. And I think that a lot of the strategists, the GOP strategists and so on, I think they understand that. And that's why it's like, if anything, there may be a regional sort of like state ban, so that way it goes to each state to decide how they want to do it. Because then it'll still be legal in some states, which means that they can still get contributions from people in regards to that on the one hand, and then they can throw red meat to their base on the other hand, blah, 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 right? This does nothing to help the people that actually live in the states where it'll be banned in. And there's a lot of states out there that have these sort of trigger laws that, you know, as soon as they get that ruling come into effect, which effectively will ban abortion in their states, you know, Alabama and Louisiana and Texas and shit like that, they all have these sort of like, you know, laws already on the books that are just being held back by Roe versus Wade, right? But yeah, so you should be afraid, you know, and the thing is, it's not just abortion, okay? Abortion, I think, really is kind of the least of our worries when it comes to having a hard right conservative court. See, the court is already leaning conservative, okay? It's already, before Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, it was already 5-4 conservatives, right? Now it's going to be 6-3. So it's going to be basically, you know, we're basically fucked. America is screwed. That's kind of why I put that in the title of this. Because what else is going to come up besides abortion, right? Universal health care. That's going to come up. See, now you know what this means? It means basically that even if the Democrats win completely, right? If all of our dreams come true and they take back the Senate and they manage to keep the House and they win the presidency, that means that any laws they pass now have to get past the Supreme Court. So let's say all that shit happens. You know, the progressive wet dream, you know, they take back all three branches and then they start passing shit like universal health care. And they pass a UBI. And they start ending the wars. And, you know, let's say all of this shit happens and it's like everything that the progressives and the Democrats want starts happening, right? Now we have this massive fucking hurdle in the Supreme Court. That's like, so now they can just like say that's unconstitutional for X, Y, and Z. And it'll have to go up to the Supreme Court, and it's going to be fucking Clarence Thomas and fucking Brett Kavanaugh and this wacky religious lady making these decisions, whether all of this shit is now like, you know, all of this stuff that has been voted on by people and that other countries all over the world have. If this is like unconstitutional, and watch what happens. This is exactly why they're pushing it. This is the number one reason why they're pushing all of this, so that they can knock down all of these policies, right? It's like the final defense that they have in order to stop any actual changes from occurring in this country, right? Watch what happens, right? That's the number one reason. The number two reason, and especially why they want to get it out before the election, especially why Donald Trump wants to get it out before the election, is because he kind of knows that he has a very big chance of losing this election, right? So he's setting it up so that when he sues over, he's going to sue over mail-in ballots, right? And I'm not the only person to say this, but this is the big fear. This is what we think is going to happen right now, okay? It takes a little while for mail-in ballots to be counted. All right, they don't count them all on the first day. It takes 2 or 3 days, right? People are going to insist that they're all counted because millions and millions of people are going to be mailing in ballots from all over the country in every state. Donald Trump and his fucking cronies have already they've already fucked with the post office to make shit, you know, get sent, you know, the mail to slow it down, right? They've already done that, right? So now what's he gonna do is he's gonna say we need to stop counting these ballots, and there will be 1 or 2 states that he needs to win that he's going to either try to stop the count or he's going to try to throw some of those ballots out. And it's going to get to the Supreme Court, and now that the Supreme Court is filled with his fucking lackeys, they're going to rule in favor of him. That's what he's counting on. And when that happens, we're not going to be able to stop it, because this is what happened in 2000. This is the entire reason why George W. Bush became president, was because of the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court stopped the count in Florida. And if they would have kept counting like the fucking law says they're supposed to, right, Al Gore would have won that, and he would have become the president. And can you imagine all of the shit that happened over the last 20 years because George W. Bush was president, right? The Iraq War, all right? Fucking 9/11, because his ass wasn't paying attention, you know, because he didn't read his fucking security briefings. 9/11 happened. The war on terror. The fucking, you know, naked airport fucking scanners, right? I mean, goddamn, and that's just the tip of the fucking iceberg, you know. This is what's gonna. So now that's what they're setting it up for. They're setting it up for a Trump win. You know, for him to basically fucking steal the election. That's what's gonna happen, and that's why he's so gung ho on getting this going before, you know, the election happens. So, yeah, man. And the thing is, there's not much we can do about it. You know, I've been watching some videos. They're saying shit like, okay, well, they can, you know, Nancy Pelosi can impeach Trump again. That might fucking slow it down. And they're not going to do shit. The Democrats aren't going to do shit. They never do. That's the problem. You know, now if it was the Republicans in their position, they'd be fighting tooth and nail, come hell or high water, every dirty ass fucking trick they have in order to stop this. The Democrats won't do it because they're fucking weak. They're weak. They are. And the shitty thing is they're the only people standing in the way. They're not going to be able to stop them. So, you know, I don't know who you want to vote for, but I recommend that if you're not a Trump supporter, that you divorce yourself from the election right now, right? Because there's a pretty big fucking chance that it's not going to go it's not going to go Biden's way, and that the Trump camp is going to successfully fucking steal the election, right? Pretty big chance. Now, you know, who knows what's going to happen? I wouldn't put money on it. It could very well be that, you know, the election day rolls around, Biden is able to get enough votes to, you know, basically fucking supersede all of this shit. Right. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, he is up in every single, you know, state. Right? Every single fucking battleground state. He's, like, you know, ahead. Right? And he's got a pretty stable majority that, you know, unlike Hillary Clinton's, you know, advantage in the polls, Joe Biden's has been pretty stable. It's gone up and down a couple of points. You know, but if you look at where Hillary Clinton was in 2016 and you look at Joe Biden now, it's a lot different, you know. And the Trump people keep fucking, like, getting scandal after scandal. This shit with his taxes just broke today. Who knows what that's going to do to him. Right? So I don't know. It could be that they end up winning. They end up getting enough votes to just, you know, to just supersede all of the shenanigans. Because you got to remember, it's not just this, you know. There's also lots of, there's going to be lots of fucking, you know, throwing out of legitimate votes all over the country. Right, there was a ruling in Pennsylvania saying that a lot of the votes that have already been cast need to be thrown out because they didn't have proper envelopes, you know, and it's like, well, are all those people, like, that have already voted by mail, you know, are all of those people going to get another vote? Are they all going to get a letter saying, hey, your vote was thrown out, you need to vote again, right? Are they going to, like, even be informed? Are they even going to know that their vote was thrown out? We don't know. right? And the risk is, well, if they just go vote again anyway, you can go to jail. So how are they supposed to know, right? Like, is that going to happen in other states, other battleground states besides Pennsylvania? You're going to see that in Arizona or, you know, Michigan or something, right? Who fucking knows? I mean, so yeah, I mean, it's like, even though Biden is way up in the polls, he's got a lot, you know, the deck is stacked against him. The deck is stacked against him. And, you know, if you're a conservative, once again, if you're a conservative and you see all this shit and this is okay with you, then you've got a serious fucking problem. You know, seriously, if you've got a serious problem, if you are not disgusted by Republican fucking vote tampering, right? The Republicans' attempts to screw up the post office, or they're like, you know, suing to get votes thrown out, or people in Georgia getting thrown off of voter rolls, right? Or vote suppression tactics, shit like that. If you're seeing all of this and you're okay with it, you've got a fucking problem. You are part of the problem, right? And it's like, you know, it's all fine now because it's working. The people that are cheating and shit are doing it, you know, you think they're on your side. And you got to remember that they're not on your side. You know, the Republicans will fucking screw you, right? When it comes to something that you want, you know, if it doesn't align with their interests, then you're not getting it. You know, why do you think they never actually have banned abortion? Why? Right? Why do you think they actually haven't, you know, banned Obamacare? That's another thing, too. They always said, oh, we're going to repeal and replace, right? Well, you know, there was a period there where the Republicans were in charge of all three branches of government for a little bit. How come they didn't get rid of Obamacare and put in their own plan, right? They had 2 fucking years to do it. How come they didn't do it? You know, because that's not part of, you know, how come they didn't do that? How come they didn't ban abortion during that time? How come they didn't get rid of restrictions on gun ownership during that time? Because they don't care about those things. All right? They don't care about those things. You know, all of those little issues that conservatives vote on, right, is not something that the GOP gives a shit about at all in the slightest. You know what they care about? Regulations on business. That's what they fucking really care about. You know, they care about government regulations on business that prevent their donors from making money, right? And, you know, the same thing happens to the Democrats as well. I'm not saying the Democrats are blameless here. You know, we don't get what we want either. Keep that in mind. You know, we want universal health care. We want a UBI, right? We want an end to police fucking brutality. Stuff like that. We don't usually get that shit either. And the politicians that we have that are actually running on those issues have to fight like hell to even get elected in the first place. You know, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, people like that. You know, they're basically like, you know, they get crushed just as much as anybody else, right? So you got to remember, you know, it's like the Democrats are they're the junior party, right? And it just so happens, you know, that basically the same donors go to each one. But when I say that, there's a big but involved there, right? The Democrats, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, are the only people that actually seem to look out for the rest of the country, right? That actually have ideas that would help us, right? And, you know, so I'm not saying it's not Republican Democrat, right? It's basically conservative, liberal, progressive, that this is the dynamic I'm working on, right? It's not all about your party. It's about your ideals, you know. And it just so happens that the Democratic Party, they're, you know, the Republican Party is pretty much going full fascist. And the only people capable of standing in their way are Democrats, the Democratic Party. They're the only ones. And it's like, they're not fucking gonna be able to do it. That's the shitty part. You know, some of them are not even interested in fucking standing in their way and preventing the slow fascist takeover of our country, which is accelerated. It's like the quick fascist takeover now. It's not even slow anymore. You know. But those are the people that, you know, that's who we got. You know, I'm a pragmatist at heart myself. I don't really care about political parties or even ideology. I care about, you know, the practical effects of policies on real people's lives. And right now, the only people that are going to stand in the way of this are the Democratic Party, and that's why I say go vote for them. Right? But just keep that in mind, getting back to what we were talking about, getting back to Amy Coney Barrett, you know, anything that we do manage to get past now has to get past that massive fucking hurdle of a hard right court. And this is gonna fuck us up. You know, this Supreme Court is gonna fuck us in the ass for decades. Right? Just watch. Shit's gonna get passed, and it's gonna get, you know, important legislation is gonna get passed, and it's gonna get knocked down by the Supreme Court. Watch. And people are gonna fucking hate it. Maybe this will be a good thing. Maybe this will lead finally to a conservative backlash, where people will just finally understand, finally get it through their fucking heads that conservatives are not working in their best interest. And finally there might be a fucking backlash, you know. I don't know, I hope so. It's hot in here, so I'm drinking water and shit. If you hear me like stopping and pausing every couple seconds, it's because I gotta drink, because my mouth gets all dry. Because it's like, you know, fucking 90 degrees in this room back here. Anyway, so yeah, I'll put links to all of this shit that I'm talking about. I'll put a link to her paper that she wrote, you know, rationalizing why it's okay to fucking execute people but not, you know, support abortion. I'll put all that down in the bottom. Okay, I think where are we at here? How long have we been streaming? What time is it? 10 o'clock? Time flies, man. You know, I think this stream has actually gone pretty good. You know, I've gone off on relatively few tangents and lost my place. So we've been going for an hour and a half already. Okay, well, it is a school night. I have to get up in the morning, so why don't we, you know, look at wrapping this up. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about here? One more thing I wanted to talk about. So there was this article that came out of The Hill. Let me turn on my monitor here. It's the big deal a few months ago about, you know, Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, in the Ukraine. Top GOP senators say Hunter Biden's work cast a shadow over Obama-Ukraine policies. So they've been spending, the Republicans have been spending thousands and millions of dollars on this investigation into Hunter Biden, which is Joe Biden's son, in the Ukraine to see if he influenced official United States policy during his time working in the Ukraine. So, go away. And, okay. Long story short, I think this is, here we go. The relevant paragraph in this article is the GOP senators acknowledge in the report that it is not clear how much U.S. policy was impacted because of Hunter Biden's work for Ukraine gas company Burisma Holdings, but they argue it created an awkwardness for the Obama-era State Department. The report does not appear to include an example of a decision in which U.S. foreign policy was changed due to Hunter Biden's work on Burisma, i.e., they found jack shit. They found nothing. Oh, okay, so it makes it awkward, but they didn't find anything. So if you guys remember a couple months ago how it was all over the news and conservative right-wing media and all the stuff about Joe Biden was a crook, and that he was covering up for his son doing illegal things in the Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. Looks like their own investigation found absolutely nothing. See, if he actually was, then they would have said that he broke some laws. He didn't break any laws. Oh well, boo-hoo. You win some, you lose some, right? Do you really think that that is going to change any Trump supporters' minds about Hunter Biden or Joe Biden? Do you really think that they're going to go, hey, look, he's not a crook after all. All of that shit I believed was bullshit. I guess it's okay then. Nope. The whole reason why that investigation was done in the first place was to smear Joe Biden. And now they have all of their followers and all of their supporters and all these guys being bussed into their bus route, their fucking rallies and shit like that. They've already cemented into their minds the idea that Joe Biden is crooked and he's a crook and a criminal. That's what this entire thing was for. Make no mistake, kind of just like how, Benghazi for Hillary Clinton was something that they just repeated, they opened investigation after investigation over and over and over, and they would find nothing. And then they'd open another one a few months later, and they would also find nothing. Over and over. And then they would had, I think they had hearings where Hillary Clinton was there for 8 hours. Benghazi hearings that actually found nothing. They found nothing. And it almost makes you think, how many times can you investigate the same fucking thing and find nothing? And it's because, folks, the whole point of Benghazi, as the whole point of this Burisma Ukraine investigation, was not to actually uncover any wrongdoing. It's basically only to associate Joe Biden's name with crime, with corruption. So that when people think Joe Biden, they think Burisma, and when they think that, they think that he's a crook. And that, my friends, is corruption. Right? And it's something that the Republicans are very, very good at. Now just think about just what happened, okay? Because you can make the argument that they already knew that he didn't have any, they already knew this wasn't going to come to anything. How much money did they just waste doing that? Right? Like, they did the same thing to Hillary Clinton. There was, repeated investigations into Benghazi. 3 or 4 investigations over and over and over. All of those cost money, right? Those are all being done with your tax dollars, right? At what point does it become a crime to waste the money like that? When one investigation doesn't find anything and you immediately open another one and that one doesn't find anything, when does it become like, okay, it's pretty fucking obvious that this is being done for a political reason, right? How come that's not against the law? That's using your power, your political power, to smear your political opponent so that you can get reelected, right? Why are none of those people in prison right now? The people that wasted millions and millions of dollars in these phony baloney Benghazi hearings in order to smear Hillary Clinton, when they knew that there were no crimes committed. How come we're not having, hearings over that shit, right? Why are they allowed to get away with stuff like that? And why is it that people continue to fucking vote for them after this happens over and over and over again? It's almost like they're a cult, and I'm not, I know this is something that people say a lot too, the GOP, the Republicans, it's all just a cult, Trump's a cult, blah, 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 right? I'm not saying it's like a religious cult, but it's more of like the same way that people will defend certain brand names to the death, right? You ever have a friend that, you go out to eat or something, and they want, on the menu, they look at the sodas, and this restaurant sells Coke, and they go, oh, I hate Coke, I like Pepsi, you know, fuck this place, let's not eat here. Right? Or something like that. And you're like, it's a fucking the same shit. And it is. It's virtually the exact same fucking thing, you know. Or you get somebody that goes to the grocery store and they want to get Tide, and they don't have Tide, they just have some other fucking brand of you know, brand of fucking laundry soap. And so they're like, oh, fuck this place, it doesn't have, you know, it doesn't have Tide. It's like, one brand of fucking soap works as well as any other fucking brand of soap. It doesn't matter, right? It's all the same shit, you know, and that's what it is. So I'm not saying it's like a religious cult. It's more of like a fucking brand, you know, tribal brand thing, right? Where they instantly distrust anything that comes out of the other side that isn't their brand, right? And, you know, I admit that I am subject to this as well, right? This is a form of bias that we're all, you know, this sort of brand loyalty bias. We're all subject to this, right? We're all vulnerable to it. And I tried my best, I try my hardest to look past this bias, right? You got to understand that it's there. And most people don't even realize that it's fucking happening, right? There's a video that I'm not going to show you because it's copyrighted. One of the guys from the Young Turks went out. I'll put a link in the thing for it. Went out, talked to Trump supporters at one of their rallies and started asking them certain things. And one of the things this guy said, he went to a Trump rally guy and he said, do you ever get your news from opposing viewpoints, right? And this dude, the Trump supporter, turned to him and said, no. You know, I don't. Why would I go to places that disagree with me? All these other people here all agree with me, right? In fact, I think I'm going to actually download that video and just pull that chunk out and maybe show it to you guys next time, all right? Because that really says it for me. You know, that's the mentality right there. That kind of like self-affirming, you know, echo chamber kind of mentality. That's what's fucking the country up right there. The unwillingness of the average person to step outside of their echo chamber. And you got to understand these things, you know. The people that you get your news from, right, the people that agree with you politically, they have agendas, right? And you got to remember this. There's an agenda on the left, you know, from the progressives and stuff like that. They want certain things, okay? And there's one from the right wing as well, and there's one from the libertarians, and there's one from centrists and monarchists, and fucking everybody has their own agenda. And it's not about, you know, which one you agree with, right? You have to make judgments on all of them. And the way I try to look at it myself is which one is best for everybody, right? What do these people want? If they actually got what they wanted, what would the country look like, right? So let's say libertarians, for example, right? Libertarians want an extremely small government, you know, no regulations, blah, 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 blah. And so you got to think like, well, logically, you know, think about what the country would look like if they actually got their agenda enacted. Is that something you agree with? And me personally, no. It's not something I agree with. You know, I mean, I've done several fucking videos. In fact, every time I do a video about libertarians, it gets all kinds of views. It gets tons and tons of views. Because I guess there's just fucking a lot of them out there. Maybe I should start doing more, you know, debunking libertarian videos, right? And you got to think, you know, so it's like, this is how I base who I support politically and which causes I support and I put my money and my time into, you know. And it's not just based, you know, I don't instantly believe everything that somebody like AOC says or Bernie Sanders says, you know. I think a lot of the shit they want is not going to be as easy as they say. One thing, for example, that you see coming from the left wing a lot, and you see this a lot from people who are anarchists, is their approach to solving the homeless problem, right? Where they basically want to house people depending on need, right? Which sounds great, but when you really think about it, I can't, basically what they want to do is they want to take the same approach that you would have with universal health care and apply that towards housing, right? And, I could see some aspects of it happening. The idea is that you would come and, housing would be distributed depending on, who needs it and what and blah, 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 blah. But I just think a lot of people haven't thought these solutions through. And, just because you support one person or one group or whatever politically doesn't mean you have to support every single thing they say or every single policy they want. And it's like, this is one that I'm not so sure about. I'm willing to have my mind changed when it comes to universal housing, right? I think it'd be great to not have, that's one of my goals also, is to reduce homelessness. I think next to the environment, my number one, myself personally, my number one issue is the environment, right? Having a clean environment, and especially when it comes to biodiversity, right? I think that's the silent tragedy of modern life, is our impact on the environment, and the result is a shrinking biodiversity that I think that people in modern societies are basically just either ignorant of this problem or ignoring it, and it's going to hit a point where eventually they're not going to be able to ignore it anymore, and I think we don't understand what a treasure biodiversity actually is, and we're not going to understand it until it's gone, right? Maybe we should make another video on that too, those are my things. And it just so happens that the progressives align with my own values the most, right? But that doesn't mean I'm going to support every single fucking thing they want. There's also a lot of stuff when it comes to gun control that the progressives want that I don't necessarily agree with either. I do believe we need restrictions on gun ownership, and I think it should be tough. I think you should have to complete safety courses, stuff like that, in order to own a gun. I believe that's something that we should institute. I don't believe that you should be able to just go into a gun show somewhere, buy a gun, walk away, no background checks, right? No, no one knows who you are, none of that stuff. I support things. I would even support something like a gun registry, where like you have to register your firearms so they know that who's got what, right? Things like someone gets shot and they can trace the bullet back to a certain gun, and then they can find that gun and who owns it, shit like that. I believe that's fine. I would even support things like smart guns. That's a thing that's could become a reality within the next 10 years. Guns, firearms that are keyed to a certain person that they won't fire if you're not that guy. So if you steal a gun from somebody, then you won't be able to fire it. In fact, you would think police would want that, because that way somebody steals one of their guns, they can't use it, right? I support all of that stuff, but completely eliminating the ability to own a gun, no, I don't support that, because you have a right. Yeah, that's in the Constitution as well. If you like that or not, doesn't fucking matter, it's there, right? So, law says that you have a right to own one. I even think that if you are a convicted felon, that should not stop you from owning a firearm either. I think that once you get out of jail, when you go to prison, right, I think that being in prison right there is your debt, is you paying your debt to society. And once you get out, then your debt should be wiped, right? And I think that, you know, I even think that you should get your right to vote back, right? And if a number of years go by, right, let's say that you manage to go 5 or 10 years after getting out of prison, I don't even think that should come up in a background check. Depending on your crime, you know. Like if it was just something like a, you know, possession or some shit like that, I don't think that should show up, you know. I mean, if you're a child molester, that's something else. Yeah, that should that should show up on a background check. You know, that kind of thing. You know, maybe if you fucking murdered somebody, that should show up. Right. So I don't know. There's room for debate there. Right. But basically, you know, I think these are all things that me personally, these are my personal issues that I vote based on. I vote based on these things. I support candidates based on these things. And, you know, Democratic progressives are the ones that align the closest to what my personal beliefs are, right? But that doesn't mean that, you know, I'm only going to get my information from those sources. I don't restrict myself only to news outlets that have progressive values. You know, I don't, you know, it's important to have a well-rounded view of the world, that you have to take in, you know, opposing viewpoints, right? It's important. So you shouldn't just only go to one source, you know, regardless of what it is. Even if you think, for example, let's say the Young Turks. Even if you think the Young Turks is the best fucking news source on the planet, and they've never, you know, their opinions are awesome, and they report on the stories that you care about, blah, blah, blah. You should not restrict yourself only to them, you know. You should go and see what, you know, other news sources have to say about the same story, you know. So it's like, whenever I read something, I'll go to like 3 or 4 different articles and read the same thing. See if one guy's leaving some shit out, right? See if, you know, this guy has a different take on it or whatever. Because this is what you need to do in order, because, you know, you got to remember that there's bias in reporting as well. You know, regardless of what kind of bias that is, whether it's, you know, left-wing bias or right-wing bias, or if it's a pro-business bias or a pro-labor bias or whatever, right? And if you're just restricting yourself to that one source of information, then you're cutting off, you know, your ability to make informed, rational decisions, right? So it's important. It's important to even see the wacky shit on the other side that you consider ridiculous, you know. And this is why I'm always talking about things like conservative, you know, subreddits and shit like that, right? This is why I'm always saying, like, oh yeah, this is what's going on in conservative subreddit, you know, in the conservative blogosphere now, because I read that stuff. I read it because it's important to keep yourself up on what's happening, right? And it's important to understand where even the people that you oppose politically, it's important to understand where they're coming from, right? What they have to say in order to, you know, convince them of your side, you know. I mean, even if you're just going to argue with them, right? Because that's actually something I do a lot. You know, I go in these places and I argue with conservatives because it's like a, you know, it's fun. I like doing it. I like arguing with conservatives because, you know, they're easy to beat, right? You know, it helps when the truth is on your side and shit, you know, but still, it also keeps you informed, and it gets you to see what they're talking about. And sometimes they got a point, you know. Sometimes there's things that they say and they might actually be right once in a while. That's like, well, you got to keep yourself open to these things, right? You know, my stance on gun control, for example, is something that I've adapted you know, based on my conversation with conservatives, right? If you were to come to me 5 years ago, I had a much different point. I was ready to fucking like repeal the Second Amendment at that point. And I was like, no, I don't believe that anymore, you know. And it's because I'm able to see from their perspective. And looking at their perspective makes me realize, and I'm talking just about gun control here, for example. It makes me realize that if we were to remove it, that would be detrimental to the interests of, you know, it would be detrimental to the interests of people on my side of the political aisle, you know, to Democrats and you know, progressives and stuff like that. And I really think that's something progressives can probably get behind. You know, smart, well thought out policies on gun control, I think, will appeal to conservatives. Right? You know, now there's always going to be those rabid people that just want none at all. You know, they don't want any restrictions whatsoever. They want, you know, they want toddlers to be able to buy rifles. Okay. There's always going to be those people. But the majority, I think, of conservatives and pro-Second Amendment people, for example, would support something like background checks. You know, and it's all in the way you frame it. You know, you just say, well, do you want criminals and crack dealers and shit buying guns? No. No, they don't. They don't want that because those are the people they're afraid of. That's why they have guns in the first place. So it's like, okay, well, it makes sense then if you don't want criminals buying your guns, you got to have a background check. Right? Do you want children bringing guns to school in order to fucking murder people in, you know, school shootings? No, they don't want that. Yeah, it's like, well, then, you know, how do you stop kids from buying, you know, getting their hands on guns? Maybe you got to have some smart, you know, some smart, well thought out, common sense gun control, you know, that doesn't restrict the right of law abiding citizens to get their hands on guns, right? You know, but maybe could prevent some of this shit in the future, you know? Maybe, you know, got to put a waiting list on, you know, a wait time on buying a rifle, something like that. You know what I mean? Maybe you can restrict some of those magazine sizes, so when somebody does go on a fucking rampage, they're not able to kill 300 people. You know, if they got to reload every 6 shots or something like that, right? Maybe you allow people who have demonstrated their, you know, ability to properly own weapons. Maybe you take some of those restrictions off and say, okay, you're allowed to own, you know, you have X number of points in training or whatever, blah, 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 blah. You're allowed to own a magazine that has more rounds in it. Maybe that's something, you know, these are the things we should be debating, right? And, you know, this is how you get people on your side. You know, this is how you prevent angry mobs of people clashing in the streets and running each over with cars and shit. Running over each other with cars, excuse me. Right. Sorry. Mouth is dry. Been talking for 2 hours. Right. This is how we start to close some of that partisan divide in the country, right? Because the politicians aren't going to do it. Politicians aren't going to do it. The politicians are going to do what they think is going to give them the most amount of power. We've already seen that. You know, especially when it comes to the fucking Republican politicians. They're not going to do shit to help anybody but themselves. Okay? They're not going to do anything to try to stop this ridiculous, you know, tribal divide. Right? Because, you know, it's only getting worse. You know, like I said last time, I really think probably, you know, before the election, but most definitely after it, if Trump loses the election, we're going to start seeing things like mass shootings at demonstrations. I already think, you know, it's a guarantee. If you're out there, if you're part of BLM and you're out there demonstrating at these things, I think you should buy a bulletproof vest. Seriously, this is no fucking joke, right? you should seriously consider buying a bulletproof vest and not going out to these protests without it, because it's only a matter of time before one of these psychopath, you know, MAGA chud Proud Boy assholes fucking unloads into the goddamn crowd with a fucking AR-15 and, you know, kills 10 or 20 people. That's what's coming, right? So, you know, that's what's coming because people are hyper, you know, partisan, and the country is hyper divided because they refuse to see things from each other's point of view. And this is how we can start to kind of heal the country a little bit. See what the other side is saying, right? Frame your arguments in such a way that it appeals to their values. You know, that's the important part right there. You know, you want them to have, you want universal health care, they don't. How can you frame the argument that universal health care is a good thing so that it appeals to their values? Right? You know, how can you get rid of the association of this with godless socialism, Soviet-style socialism? Because that's what they've been fucking brainwashed into thinking it is, right? Over the last 30 fucking years, thanks to people like Tucker Carlson and Rush Limbaugh and all those people, right? Thanks to 30 years of right-wing hate speech disguised as media, they're not capable of like making rational decisions when it comes to, you know, policies, right? It comes to fucking like common sense policies that the rest of the developed world does, right? They don't want it. They think that's commie bullshit. How do you frame your argument in such a way that you say it's not commie bullshit? Okay. You know, you got to learn how to speak their language. Say, you know, universal health care is beneficial towards capitalism. Bam. Right? And then you got to approach it from that angle. Why is it great? Why does it help capitalism? Well, because if you have a small business, then you don't have to waste money trying to find, you know, healthcare providers for your workers. There you go. That ups productivity right there, you know. And then if you have a small bit, because that's what actually happens right now, you know, something like the majority, what is it, like 80% of people get their healthcare through, you know, get their healthcare through their employers. And you go, well, you know, that holds back small businesses, doesn't it? They got to spend all this money fucking getting like healthcare deals and shit. Well, hey, maybe it'll actually fucking help capitalism. It'll help small businesses if we actually fucking like provided that shit for them. There you go. That's how you got to think about these things, right? You got to learn how to, you have to learn how to speak to your opposition like they're human beings. And, you know, some people you can't, obviously. You know, I don't recommend trying to approach people like fucking white supremacists like this, because fuck those people. But, you know, the majority of conservatives and Republicans and things are not white supremacists. They're just normal people like us. And you can make those same types of arguments when it comes to institutional policies that support racism as well. Right. Police officers who shoot black people at a higher disproportional rate than white people. You know, how do you approach that? You approach it from the justice angle. Right. These cops are not following the law. You know, the black people also that are being murdered, like Breonna Taylor, like George Floyd, etc., they also deserve their days in court, do they not? You know, this is how you need to approach it, you know. This is one method that you can use, right? The justice. You approach it from the justice angle, you know. Everybody deserves our day in court, right? When the cop kills them, then that's being removed. Right? There you go. And it's like, I think everybody would agree with that. And I think anybody who's a conservative, if they believe in justice, if they believe in the criminal justice system, right, if they believe in the Constitution, which you got to remember not all of them do, but, you know, the majority of them say they do, right, then it's like, how come these people they're not getting their day in court being able to defend themselves, right? What gives the police officer the right to be a judge, jury, and executioner? You know, because what? Because Breonna Taylor's ex-boyfriend was a drug dealer. All right. You're not going to be able to reach everybody, obviously. You got to keep that in mind, too. You're not going to be able to reach everybody. There's always going to be people who are too far gone, who don't care. And also, you got to remember the 30% or so who are just fucking asshole chuds. And their entire existence is just to, like, make liberals cry. Don't even try to appeal to those guys, I don't think. You know, but your average conservative is not one of those people. Your average conservative is just a normal person that wants to have a job and, you know, live their life normally. And, you know, just happens to believe different things than you believe. And, you know, this is how you appeal. This is how you get those people on your side. By appealing to the things they believe in. You know, and helping them to understand that we're all not that different. We all live in the same country. We all want the same things, you know. And it just so happens the people that they're supporting are the ones who are fucking everything up. So, I don't know. Okay, well, it's been 2 hours. So let's talk about some of the... we only have a couple of comments here, but, you know, hey, 1911 greater than all, you just commented too, right on, so I will read your comment also. Let me start at the top. Dinah Cat loves me. Republicans today don't even get the concept, they just know it triggers the libs and is a great thing to accuse the libs of. I'm not exactly sure what the context of that was, but, you know, that's funny because that's exactly what we were just talking about right now. And it's, you know, there are people like that. Yes. Okay. I mean, it's funny. We're actually just talking about this. There are people like that, obviously. There are people that don't care, you know, that just want to troll and, you know, seem to just get off on making life hell for people that they disagree with politically, right? Yeah, that's definitely a thing. And you shouldn't really don't try to appeal to those people because it's a lost cause, obviously. You know, the guys on 4chan and shit like that, and, you know, white nationalists who don't give a fuck about justice, right? Those kinds of people, you're just going to be wasting your time trying to appeal to those guys. But, you know, it's not... They're thankfully very much a minority. That's another thing you got to remember. And this is something I think that we on the left, we kind of overstate their numbers and their importance, right? If you remember 2017, there was the Unite the Right rally, that thing in Charlottesville, right? There was only something like 1,200 people at that entire thing, right? That was a thing that Unite the Right rally was advertised for months. Okay. Months and months and months they were putting that on there. And only 1,200 people showed up. You know, there was something like 3 times the amount of counter-protesters at that thing than there were the actual racist protester guys, right? So they're not a very big part of even the right wing. They're very small. What you do have on the right wing, you do have a lot of sort of MAGA people, right? And you're starting to see a lot of like QAnon kind of people, like that shit's spreading, you know. So you do have a lot of like and there's degrees to it. There's degrees to these people. There's some people that are, you know, just normal Republicans, like what we would have called a Republican 20 years ago, which is pretty much a centrist today, right? I probably would have been a Republican back in the 80s, you know, with the shit that I believe, you know, because you got to remember a lot of the stuff, you know, things like the environmental, the EPA. I mean, that was started by Richard Nixon, for crying out loud. So it's like, you know, Republicans were not always anti-environment, pro-business, right? As much as they are now, you know, like, right, fucking pro-corporate people as a group. That really wasn't always a thing. As you know, like anything, beliefs and political positions change over time, right? You know, um, so we got to remember, you know, this is a not that many of them, but there are a lot of sort of like there are a lot of people that just don't take any information from other sources. And so they might not. So you'll bring things up. You'll say, well, what about this, this, and this? And they'll say, oh, I never heard of that. And you go, well, of course you never heard of it because fucking, you know, the places you get your media from, they're not going to report on this story. Right? Like Donald Trump's taxes, for example, just dropped today. Right? And turns out, you know, I haven't gone through the whole thing yet, but it turns out he's only paid in the last 10 years, he's only paid something like $750 in taxes over 10 years. Do you think they're going to talk about that on Sean Hannity? Nope. Nope. They most likely will not even bring that up at all. Right? And it's most likely that story is going to die, and all of the people that watch those, you know, places like One American Network and Fox and all that, they're not even going to know that this even happened by this time next week. Right? And there's a lot of people like that you run it. And this is the same thing on the left as well. There's lots of people on the left that only consume news from sources they agree with, you know. And so I just got finished talking about that. So, you know, I'm not going to go through that again. But, you know, but still, that's really the danger we got to look out for there. Okay, let's see. Dinah Cat loves me. The thing almost nobody seems to understand about the pandemic stats is that today's numbers are telling you what the situation was about a week ago. Yes, this is true. It's a delay. So it's actually, you know, when you look at the number of deaths and it's 204,000, 240. Let's see, what is the daily numbers? Let's see, show all. So for the United States, 205,000 deaths. 205,000. Jesus Christ, that's a lot. Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That was about a week ago. And you got to remember, those are only the reported ones and only the deaths that were recorded in that way. So people who didn't die in a hospital due to, you know, the big C word, they're not being counted. So if someone didn't go to the hospital because they didn't have any money and they just died at home and they were never tested, that doesn't get counted, right? So it's like, we don't, you know, the actual real number is probably several times more than that, right? So we got to keep that in mind. And one thing that you want to look for, I think this will really, you know, in the future, we'll get a more accurate count, is what you do is you look at the number of people who died last year, and then you compare it to the number of people who died this year of just everything, and you see, you know, usually that trend kind of stays roughly the same every year. You know, if you have 50,000 people who die of heart attacks one year, chances are you're still going to have roughly 50,000 people who die of heart attacks the next year. You know, it's because it's a general trend throughout society. You know, those people, how people work out and what they eat and blah, 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 shit like that, right? It's not just suddenly going to be 1 year you have 3 people die of heart attacks, right? So then, anyway, so what you do is you compare those numbers and you see how much they increased. And I think we're going to find in 2021 that once we have sufficient data for 2020, we're going to see a massive increase in the number of people who've actually died. Those will be unaccounted deaths. And will all of those be due to COVID-19? I don't know. But Some of them will. So yeah, it's not over by a long shot. And we're not getting accurate numbers now by a long shot as well. One more. Dinah Cat Loves Me. Is that for Florida? You can't use them because they're faking them. Yeah, they are. That's testimony from someone who quit. Yes, they did. And I'm going to put a link to that article in the bottom of the thing after I'm done here. All right, 1911 greater than all. What's happening, man? Let me read your comments and then we're going to call it quits because it's almost been 2 hours. Okay, apprehension is basically the deciding factor. If they refuse to be taken into custody in order for due process to be applied, then you have to accept the fact that force can and will be applied. Yes, yes. And, you know, I don't think anybody, I mean, I think we were talking about people being, you know, killed by cops here, right? Here's the thing. When it can be demonstrated that whoever the person was actually doing something dangerous that was putting somebody's life in danger or whatever, you tend not to get protests or riots. And that's why, like I said, that's why it's so important to have body cameras. You know, at the beginning of the stream, I don't know if you were on at the beginning of the stream, 1911, but I was talking about Breonna Taylor, right? The case of Breonna Taylor, right? And what happened there was that they didn't have their body cameras on, so we don't really know what actually happened. We have their version of the events, right, where they say they announced themselves, and then we have the victim's version of events where they said that they didn't announce themselves. And it's like, well, who's telling the truth, right? They had body cameras. How come they didn't have them? And, you know, here's the thing. If the police actually had their body cameras turned on like they were supposed to, when they did that raid, we would know that if it was a no-knock raid or not, right? We would see if they acted appropriately, and if it turned out that they did act appropriately, people wouldn't riot. And that's why you see, like, when someone who's actually guilty of a real crime, you know, who actually does something like, remember there was a thing a few weeks ago about a guy who stole a taser and was running away and fired the taser over his shoulder, right? And, you know, the cops shot him, right? This was like, I can't remember his name. See, there's so many fucking shootings, right? I can't remember his name, but this was maybe about a month and a half ago where this was in the news. You know, basically this dude steals a taser and then shoots it at the cops, and then the cops kill him. And it's like, nobody rioted over that one, right? Why? Because they had video of the guy doing, you know, breaking the law like that, putting someone in danger like that. I think it kind of, you know, opens the question of, well, if is a taser a fucking lethal weapon then? Right? Like, why are they like, you know, if they can shoot you for shooting a taser at them, maybe they shouldn't be shooting them at you in the first place. Maybe they shouldn't be shooting them at us, but that begs the question, you know. That's an example of how, you know, when they do shit the right way, right? When they have actual evidence of whoever it is doing something illegal or putting someone's life in danger, you know, you don't see protesters out there, right, over stuff like that. So that's kind of what I'm talking about here. It's like, you know, and these are reforms that we need, you know. It's for, like, these reforms are for the protection of the police as much as they are anybody else, right? That's what these cameras are there for. It's to protect us, to make sure they're not doing anything wrong or illegal. Like, if you said you just got here, I showed a video earlier of a cop planting crack on somebody and then noticing he was being filmed and running up and chasing him, right? If that guy had his camera on, he wouldn't be able to do that, right? It protects us from them, but it also protects the police from, you know, getting blamed for shit they didn't do, right? So it's like, it's a win-win for everybody. So why don't the police have these cameras on all the time? It should be a law that says they got to have these cameras on. So anyway, let's see. Let's read another one. I can remember an advertised KKK rally. Grand total of three in support of them at the rally on the news. Then the sheriff department appeared and had to be medically evacuated because they fell. Wait, what? You mean like one of the guys at the rally fell over and had to be evacuated? Damn, that's kind of awesome. Yeah, see, there you go, man. It's like the actual out and out racists who are proud of the fact that they're racist and are willing to go public with it. There's not that many of them. Not that many of them at all. So there may be, actually there probably are way more people who are like in the closet about it, but the actual like militant white supremacists who are willing to show their face and who would actually be out there to like, cause like damage and hurt people, not that many. And that's kind of a good thing, that kind of shows it's like, yeah, if they can't even get a rally with more than 1,200 people from around the entire fucking country, it's like that kind of shows you that they don't really have as much power as we all think they do, as people on the left definitely ascribe to them as having, which is good. That's great. Let's see. I find C-word numbers to be highly suspect. My brother tested positive. Yeah, I remember you told me the story. Yet he never actually stayed while they administered the test. They gave him another waiting period of 2 hours. He said, get effed. Well, that's bad. See, I mean, that's, it's great. I'm glad that he didn't actually have it. I mean, I guess you wouldn't know if he had it, right? Because he never got the test. That's bad, man. See, other countries don't have that problem. Like, he should be able to get the test in a timely manner, right? And know whether or not he's been exposed to this. And he should be able to know because, if he actually was exposed, then that means that, and he didn't get a proper test, that means he could be exposing other people, and including you. I mean, I assume that you, have contact with your brother a lot, right? And not just you and your family, but just other random people on the street. That's bad, dude. That's like, I mean, damn. Why don't we have sufficient testing in this country yet? It's been 9 months so far? No, not 9 months. 7 months since all of this shit started. We still don't have testing. I actually looked into it because I wanted to get a test so that I could have dinner with my mom. Because my mom is like, in her 60s, right? And, and it's like, you want to hang out with your old folks because, I mean, shit, you got to do it now before it's too late, right? And I wanted to have dinner with my mom, and I was like, all right, well, let me look and see how much a test is. And it was $500 for a goddamn test. Like, and it was like, forget it, I'm not getting it. And I guess if you're showing symptoms and shit, you can get it cheaper, right? But that's how much it was, and I was like, man, this is a joke. Now compare this to South Korea, where they have drive-through testing areas. You drive through, you get a swab, bam, it's all paid for, right? And this is like what I was talking about earlier about universal healthcare, framing it in such a way so people can understand, right? People in Britain and France and Belgium, they're not paying $500 to get a fucking test, right? Why is that? And maybe that's why they have much lower numbers than we do. This is how the shit's advantageous to us to actually have these policies, right? You shouldn't have to pay that much money to get a test to know whether or not you're putting your family at risk. You know what I mean? Seriously, it's like, anyway, let's go on. SOP for departments vary widely throughout the U.S. For example, police officer can be 16 years old in my state, other states not so much. Wait, 16 years old in your state? What? Really? I don't really know what SOP means, sorry dude, but A cop can be 16? Are you serious? You mean like is it someone who's been deputized? Because I would imagine that you'd have to be 18 to be a police officer. Like, I don't know, man. Are you sure about that? I'd have to look that up. I mean, fuck. If I had a 16-year-old kid trying to arrest me, fuck that. I'll just run away. Jesus Christ. 16-year-old kid. Bribe his ass with a Nintendo Switch or something. That's ridiculous. Genie B, what's happening? Hang on, let me read. I got a couple more comments to get to, and then I'll get to yours, Genie. Let's see. 1911. Whenever there is a question of struggling over a firearm, then lethal force can be used. Presumably, if hit by a taser and you are incapacitated, the attacker can simply take your firearm. Yeah, I mean, but there you go. See, that was the example. Right. That was the example right there that I used. And, you know, nobody went crazy over that because it was like actual evidence of something bad happening. Well, if they had evidence in all these other cases as well, then you wouldn't see this type of reaction that, you know. So that's what I mean when I say, like, it protects them as well as us. You know, things like police body cameras. It doesn't just protect the citizens. It protects the police officers as well. It keeps them from being sued and keeps them from being fired for shit that they didn't do. And I just really can't understand why that isn't a law everywhere in the country. Okay, all right, I'll read your last two, but then that's it, because I gotta end it, because I've been streaming for 2 hours. I don't know, hey, Jeannie, I almost said your real name there, sorry. I don't know how much of the stream you saw, but I actually gotta end it, because I gotta work tomorrow. But anyway, Jeannie B, we're being duly spanked from coast to coast for our crimes against nature and the gift of life in general. May sanity sink in sooner than later. Sexual Breakfast says, nice trees. Why, thank you, baby. Appreciate that. Me and Jeannie B go way back, you know, so that's cool. Thanks for stopping by. Good to hear from you. Yeah, the trees do look pretty good, don't they? But yeah, you're right. You know, shit is pretty bad out there right now in the country. And, you know, it can't go on. It can't go on. And I think, you know, like I was saying earlier in the stream, one thing we can do to kind of heal that breach is to try to see things from other people's point of view. So, okay, last one. I'll take your last one, 1911. I would agree with Rand Paul when he banned no-knock warrants, even though there was a question if it warrant was no-knock or not. Court's docs say there was no knock, but police did knock according to witnesses. Yeah, see, that's the thing, right? They have one witness, right? So actually, I did talk about this earlier in the stream, so I won't spend too much time on it. That was kind of like the first, like, half hour of the stream was about Breonna Taylor. They have one witness that said that they announced it, right? But the court doc says that it was a no-knock raid. The guy that fired at them said they didn't announce themselves. Right. So it's like, you know, do you trust them to take them at their word? I don't. And I shouldn't have to trust them to take them at their word. They should have the evidence that what they said is true. You know what I mean? And that evidence is, you know, body cam. Why wasn't their fucking body cam turned on? You know, see, the only reason a cop doesn't want to have, the cops don't like body cams because it means that they can't get away with shit that they normally would have, right? You know, it means that you're not going to be able to scrutinize their performance and find where they like didn't follow procedure correctly or where they discriminated or whatever. And that's the only fucking reason why to not have it, because every other reason there is benefits not just you but also them. So, you know, but here's the shitty thing about it is like, you know, so were they lying about that then? You know, we don't know. We have no way of knowing, right? They got a witness, right? Who knows if this witness is actually accurate? I mean, like I said before, all we know, they could have, like, bribed a guy to fucking say this. They could have just said, hey man, you know, you've got this legal problem, we'll make it go away. Right. Or maybe the witness that they got heard them incorrectly. Maybe they said it after they kicked the door down and the guy thought that they said it before. You know, I mean, can you tell if some shit happens outside of your door that you don't witness, like, with your eyes, and you just hear some shit happen? Do you actually know what's going on? No, it's that you thought you heard them say it. Maybe they said it after they knocked on the door. We don't know. And that's the shitty thing about it. But the way the law is written in Kentucky is that they fucking get away with it. Right. So yeah, but I did talk about this. Yeah, like basically the first half hour of the stream was about Breonna Taylor and what's wrong and why it's like fucked up. And, you know, the conclusion is basically they should have had their fucking body cameras on. That's my conclusion. Anyway, hey guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, 1911. And thank you, Cat, what was your name? Sorry. Dinah Cat loves me. And thank you, Jeannie B, for stopping by. I really appreciate it, you guys. We've already been streaming here for 2.5 hours. And it's 11 o'clock here in California, and I gotta go to work in 9 hours. So we're gonna end this. But before we do, let's take a look at what we got. It's looking pretty good, if I don't say so myself. You know, kind of did a lot here with this sort of, you know, there's a little bit at the bottom there, so I'm not actually getting all of it in the camera right here, but this is most of it. Looking pretty good. I think this is a little blank down here, so maybe I'll put like something in this area. And plus I gotta white out that little area right there. This line is screwed up. I gotta fix that. You know, gotta put something here, maybe like skeleton or fucking another log or something to fill this area up. And then I think what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go Xerox this onto some very thick, like cardstock or something, and then I'm gonna use like markers and watercolors. I'm not gonna Photoshop this one at first. I'm gonna use actual traditional media that I actually haven't done anything with in a very, very long time. One thing I do want to show you guys, because I've been practicing. So here's something I did a few days ago. This is actually the first thing that, you know, because I've been getting ready for this. All right. This is the first thing I've done with traditional media in literally, Jesus Christ, since like 2004. It's been like 16 years since I've done anything that hasn't been straight Photoshop. I think, no, wait, no, that's not true. I did paint something in like 2010. I made a painting. So there you go. So it's been like 10 years since I've done any type of traditional media. So, you know, just kind of like warming myself up, getting back into it and stuff. So this is all colored pencils. And then I used a gel pen. And I think it turned out pretty good, you know. So I'm thinking something like that for all of this. You know, most likely it'll be colored pencils and watercolor. And we'll see what happens. But I'm not going to do it on this paper because this paper's too thin and it'll just bleed right through it. But I think it's coming out pretty good. So that's what we'll be doing for the next couple of streams. Before I quit, I didn't do this last time, and you know, my kind of sales sort of suffered for this, so I got to show you guys my other stuff, my social media. Right. And I promise that I'm just gonna film a little segment of me like doing this so that I don't have to repeat the same thing each fucking stream. You know, if any of you guys even watch this, I'm sure you all probably tune out by the time I start talking about my stuff at the end. But anyway, if you like what I do, please consider supporting the channel. I do have a Patreon. It's at Juanja at patreon.com. Nobody's on it right now, but if you want to support me, you can sign up for that. If you don't want to do Patreon, you can go to my Etsy shop. This is me on Etsy. I'll put a link to this in the bottom of the thing. And I sell prints like this. This one is our Demon Scroll print that we spent 3 or 4 live streams making. That's what it turned out like. It actually looks pretty good, I think. Right. So yeah, you know, I sell these things about 15 bucks each. So if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying a print. Let's see if this one actually loads. Here we go. This one is the Kraken. This is my own design. Right. Looks pretty good, I think. Anyway, so that's cool. Then if you like my artwork, you can please check me out on DeviantArt. I post comics here, and then also prints and just, you know, artwork in general, right? So if you like what I do, you know, and you want to see more of my artwork, you can check it out here at hwanja.com/deviantart. I also have a webcomic at hwanja.com, which is about ninjas and stuff like that. So, you know, things are starting to get pretty crazy on the Hwanja webcomic. And then I also have an Instagram. If you want to follow me on Instagram, this is, you know, I basically post sketches and stuff like that. You know, this is a sculpture I did right here. Oh, well, it's not going to let me see it, but this thing right here I sculpted. In fact, you know what? I could show that to you guys. I will, yeah, this will be kind of cool. Let me show you my sculpture here. Let me turn off my monitor. And let's get rid of this guy. Yep, so here's the thing that I sculpted. This is kind of a beastie monster sort of thing. We're looking at the top of it right here. And I'm going to put this on the SD shop too. And this is about maybe 6 inches long right here. And, you know, it's got like teeth and crap in it and everything. These are like costume teeth that I like repainted. These are actual buffalo teeth that I used. You can like make necklaces out of these. You buy them on eBay, stuff like that. And, you know, made these like, so I make stuff like this, crazy, disgusting tentacle monsters. This is made out of latex and paper and stuff, so it's all sort of rubbery, you know. And, you know, could use these for like Halloween decorations, or if you're into wargaming or whatever, or if you just want a disgusting monster in your house. Here you go. So I'll probably be listing that pretty soon up on my SD shop. And what else? I think that's it. I have some other things. I have another YouTube channel that I do video game streams, and I talk about toys and stuff. And I'll put links to all that stuff down in the bottom so you can all see it. But anyway, if you like what I do and you want to support me, please consider checking out my other stuff. And, oh, thanks, man. Thank you, Jeannie B. Let's see. I think it's time for me to end this. So once again, thank you 1911, and thank you Jeannie B, and thank you Dinah Cat Loves Me, and everybody else who came and hung out tonight. And we'll probably do another one. I'm gonna aim for Wednesday of this week, but I don't know. I'll try to do another one at least by Wednesday. But I will definitely put the thing up so that you guys know that it's coming at least a day in advance. Thank you all so much for joining me. Everybody out there, stay safe.